Welcome to Tree to Table. I'm your host, Sarah Gollibart Gorman. Today we're at Silver Run Forest Farm, a native plant nursery out in Kieseltown, Virginia, and we're making spiced apple mulled wine. Let's get started. For today's recipe, we are using Crimson Crisp apples from Shenandoah Valley Orchards. We have this amazing 10-pound gift box, which is good for this recipe because it requires 8 apples. So you're using a good amount of the gift box in this recipe, and then you can use the leftovers for display at your house party, your dinner party, nice festive decoration. So I have my apples out of the box, so let's move this aside and get started. A Crimson Crisp apple works well in this recipe because it's great for juice or cider. So you're looking for a cider apple for this recipe since the juices are really going to incorporate with the wine and the spices. Crimson Crisp is sweet, it's crunchy, and if you don't have these around, you can also use an Ambrosia, an EverCrisp, or a Honeycrisp apple. So first step, we're going to cut these in half, and we're going to stud them with these whole cloves. So typically in mulled wine, you see the whole cloves in the orange, but today, because our focus is apples, we're going to put them into the apples. So the best thing about cloves is they have this little spine on them, and then it's going to go right into our stock pot. And then we're just going to keep going. Since we're using about 8 apples for this recipe and we need to use about 20 cloves, each apple is going to get, anywhere from 3 to 4 cloves. Next, we're going to add some oranges. You want to have a smaller orange for this recipe. Tangerines, clementines work. I have tangerines right here, so we're just going to cut these in half. And you want to leave the skin on because that's going to provide a really nice orangey flavor to the mulled wine. So just slice them in half, toss them in the pot. So next we have cardamom pods. So cardamom is a spice you typically find in chai tea. It's very warming, super aromatic and delicious. We need to crack these babies open to get the flavor out. So I'm just going to put them on the cutting board and use the broad side of my knife to press down until the pod cracks. We're going to add just 1 star anise pod. This has a very strong flavor, but we don't want to have it overpower the wine, so just 1. We're also going to add 2 cinnamon sticks. Pop those in. Then we're going to add 3 cups of apple cider. You can make this on your own with SVO apples, which I recommend. For today, we're just using some apple cider sourced from where we are right now, from Silver Run Forest Farm, the native plant nursery. Next, we're going to add 2 bottles of wine. When you're selecting wine for this recipe, you don't want to go for the most expensive bottle because, we're spicing it, we're adding sweetener, fruit. This is better for kind of middle of the road wine. A $10 bottle, $15 bottle is perfect. Since we're using local SVO apples, I thought we should also include local wine. This wine is from Rockbridge Vineyard. It is their Tuscarora Red, and I chose it because the description says it has these cherry notes, these berry notes, these spices. You want to choose like a very rich, deep, jammy wine with spices listed that are reminiscent of what we're adding here for this recipe. Other wines that can work in this recipe include Zinfandel, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, or Garnacha. Basically, you want a full-bodied, jammy wine. So we're going to add these in. And you might be tempted to, get 2 different bottles of wine, but actually you want to use the same varietal for both bottles because there's no need to be mixing and blending here. So we're going to add a cup of maple syrup as our sweetener for the mulled wine. You could also use port here, like a sweet, enriched red wine that would increase the alcohol level in this beverage. We chose maple syrup because, again, we're going with a local product here. So I'm going to add, first I'm just going to add half a cup of maple syrup. I'm going to stir it and taste it and just make sure it's the level of sweetness that I want. Maple syrup is easier to integrate than honey, and maple just provides such a nice seasonal flavor as well. I almost don't want to add the other half of a half cup of maple syrup just because the fruit is lending a sweetness on its own. So actually I'm gonna not put this in. So again, it's up to you, your personal taste preference. It can be as sweet or as not sweet as you'd like. We're gonna bring this to a simmer for about 20 minutes. We don't wanna let it come to a full boil because we'll cook off the alcohol that way. So let's just keep it simmering. You wanna watch it, maybe stirring occasionally. Then once it's ready, you can keep it on the low on your stovetop, or like I said before, you can transfer it into your crock pot with a ladle nearby, some nice cute mugs around like these from Cassie Newman Ceramics, and serve your mulled wine to your guests that way. So let's let this simmer and then we'll come back and do our final tasting. Our spiced apple mulled wine has been simmering for about 20 minutes. The aromas are just filling the house. It smells so good. It's time to serve. I'm gonna use my ladle here and dip in among the apples and oranges and spices and just drop in a ladle full of this delicious beverage. You know, you saw how easy the prep is. This is such an elegant, a decadent seasonal beverage, so you can really wow your guests with this dish that seems kind of complicated, but really, as you saw, it's super simple. So we have our mulled wine in the cup. I'm gonna add a few garnishes. I'm gonna add a stick of cinnamon, an anise pod here, and I can also add an apple slice or an orange slice if I'd like. All right, let's give this a try. Wow, that is so delicious. The spices are so warming. The fruit is really forward. I'm getting that appley taste, that beautiful crimson crisp. What a great way to just welcome colder weather and enjoy the season. Stay tuned for what we're cooking up next with Shenandoah Valley Orchards. Cheers.